In this video, we will learn about frequency distributions, and once we know about frequency distribution, we will learn how to draw a histogram. So when we are trying to draw a frequency distribution, we are basically trying to summarize the data so that we have different categories from that data and we assign the number of occurrences of each category in that data. For example, if I have data of students of a college and against their name I have the branch that they belong to, I can create a table like this in which I have summarized that how many of those students belong to each branch. So in an engineering college, in that list 100 students belong to computer science branch, 80 students belong to mechanical engineering branch, and so on. When we have the categories like this, that is, the categories are discrete, we have 5 different branches, and to each branch we can clearly assign the students. This is called qualitative data or categorical data, and this type of distribution is called a frequency distribution for qualitative data. So the raw data would be student name, in front of that is written the branch to which that student belongs, and we have this list for 420 students, and we summarize that data as how many students belong to each group. Once we have assigned these frequencies, we can also find out the relative frequency of each category by using this formula, that is frequency of that category divided by sum of all frequencies. That is, if I want to find out the relative frequency of students belonging to biotechnology, it is 60. That is the frequency of this category divided by the total frequency, which is 420, is equal to nearly 14.2%. So when we build a frequency distribution for qualitative data, that is, there are clear discrete categories, and we draw a graph of it, it is similar to a bar chart. A graphical representation of frequency distribution for qualitative data is known as bar chart. Bar chart we have already discussed. We know how to draw a bar chart. If we have a data like this, you can just select the data in Excel and go to bar charts and draw this kind of graph. The next type of frequency distribution is frequency distribution for quantitative data, that is continuous data. So for example, if I have name of students and in front of them I have the marks of these students in science. So marks is a continuous value from 0 to 100. If I want to straight away create categories, maybe I'll get 100 categories, one category of 0, one category of 2, one category of value 3, and that does not really make a sense. So when we have a continuous data, we try to create ranges, small ranges, and within each range we assign the frequency of number of instances belonging to that category. So for example, instead of creating 0, 1, 2, 3 as categories, we have created 0 to 35 as one category, 35 to 55 as another, 55 to 70 as another, and so on. And within each range I have found out how many students belong to that range and I have assigned that number here. So this table is frequency distribution for a continuous data. And when we create a graph of this data, that is called a histogram. So a graph of frequency distribution of categorical variable is called bar chart. A graph of frequency distribution of continuous data is called a histogram. So how to draw a histogram when you have continuous data? I have outlined that process in these 6 steps. When you have a list of continuous data, the first thing you need to decide is the number of classes that you want, that is the number of categories. For example, in the previous example, we have 5 classes. So first thing you need to decide is how many classes you want in your table. Second, using that number of classes, we find out the class width using this formula. The maximum value of data and the minimum value of data. What is the difference between these two values divided by the number of classes that we decided in first step. Once we have class width, we can start creating the classes. We start by the minimum value, we add class width, and we get the first class. This will get clear when we go through the example. This is the continuous data that I have. It's a set of 24 numbers and I want to segregate into 5 equal classes. So I have selected the number of classes, which is 5. Now I want to find out the class width. I told you class width is found by subtracting minimum value from the maximum value. Minimum value for this set of numbers is 6 and the maximum value is 36. So 36 minus 6 divided by number of classes, which is 5. So it comes out to 6. Now to create the classes, I will start with the minimum value, which is 6, and I will add the class width to get this upper range. So it is 6 to 12. Next class will start from this value 12 and we will add the class width to get 18 and so on. So from 6 to 12, 12 to 18, 18 to 24, 24 to 30, 30 to 36. To avoid confusion that if we have a number 30, to which class it will belong, we usually follow this convention that 30 will not belong to this class, it will belong to this 24 to 30 class. That is, 30 will be part of the upper range and not of the lower range. Once we have created these classes, we have to start assigning each number to these classes. So I will go through the numbers one by one and I'll start adding a mark to each of the classes to whichever class that number belongs. So for example, I start with 10, 10 belongs to this class, so I add a mark here. Then there is 14, 14 belongs to this class, I add a mark here. I go through all these numbers and I continue adding marks. In the end, I have this column containing tally, which is giving me how many numbers belong to each category. Lastly, I just need to add these marks to get the frequency. So this is how this table is created, and once this table is created, we can create a histogram. So let us go to Excel now and create this histogram. So here is the list of numbers that I had in my presentation, and this is the histogram which is created for these numbers. The good thing about Excel is that you do not need to create that table to create this histogram. Excel can create this histogram straight away using these numbers. You can see from 6 to 12 we have 2, from 12 to 18 we have 4. So basically the classes are on the horizontal axis and the height of the bar is giving you the frequency in each class. One small but important thing to note here is that Excel is using these curved and square brackets to indicate that which number is included and which is not. For example, in this 24 to 30, 24 number will not be included in this graph, therefore it has a curved bracket, but 30 will be included in this bar, therefore it is a square bracket. So you can see for these 4 categories, the first number is not included but the second is included, but for this first category only, the first and second both are included. This is how a histogram will look like. Let us learn how to create this histogram. I'll delete this first. So to create a histogram, select the numbers that we have, go to insert. In these statistical graphs, this first option is a histogram. You can see by default it has created 3 classes with the range 6 to 16, 16 to 26 and 26 to 36. Now I wanted 5 classes. So for that I will do the format access. To open the format access, you know how to open this formatting options. Either right click and select the format option, or you double click on that chart element to open formatting options for that particular element. So I double clicked on the horizontal axis to open its formatting options. In these, the third option will have the specific access options for histograms. Here you can change the bin width and number of bins. By default, automatically it created 3 bins. Now I want to create 5 bins. Now either I give a bin width of value 6, which I found out. So this is the histogram that I wanted to see, or I could have given the number of bins as 5. So both will work. Also remember, whenever you draw a histogram, it is advisable that you have data labels on top of it. It will make it easier to find out what is the frequency of each category. The second type of statistical chart is a Pareto chart. So this is a Pareto chart. It is similar to the histogram. The major difference is the categories are shuffled. These are shuffled in this sense that the category which is contributing the most comes first. So this category had a frequency of 9, so it is coming first. Next comes the category which is contributing the next maximum to the total. So the categories are arranged in the descending order of their frequency values. And this line is showing the cumulative relative frequency values. For example, the relative frequency of this category is around 35%. When I add the second category, it becomes nearly 70%. After third category, it becomes nearly 88%. After adding fourth category, it becomes nearly 95%. And the last category adds it to 100%. So using Pareto, you can estimate how many of the categories contribute to how much percentage of the total. So for example, if you would like to find out those important 2 or 3 categories which are contributing 80% of the total, you can do that using a Pareto analysis. So this is how we create frequency distribution and histograms. Good thing about using Excel is you do not need to create a frequency distribution table to create a histogram. I told you how to do that so that you understand the concept behind a histogram. That's all for this video.